and today is day 12 of me making videos every single day. I really want to talk with you about the importance of the composition. If being more precise, today I have the idea to share with you what kind of street photography I do and why I think it is important, or at least why it is really important for me, why I chose to do this kind of street photography. Yes, of course, not all photography that I do is only street photography, but the most photography that I do, and I usually approach the photography as a street photography. It's because in the street photography, the main thing you have to do is focus on the composition. And for everyone who is somehow connected to content creating in any possible way, I think composition is the key you have to understand. You have to work a lot on the framing, on the light, on the colors. In the street photography, pretty often you have to adapt to the situation that you're in. I mean, usually you don't prepare the situation. You just go outside, you just go on the street, and you have to work on the ability to find the good composition, on the ability to find the good light, on the ability to find the good colors or matching colors or unmatching. I mean, in general, to work to find the right composition that might look good or that might satisfy you as an artist. So, I mean, you have to work on the skills of your eyes to see what you need to put in your story. One thing, what I do pretty often is the photography of architecture. I mean, the photography where I try to find interesting buildings or the angles of some buildings. I live in pretty small town, Trondheim. It's the north mid of Norway. And this city has like pretty small inhabitants, around 250,000, and as all Nordic cities, especially Norwegian cities, typical Nordic architecture, which is really thankful for photography, because a lot of houses, a lot of buildings are wooden or just have interesting lines, interesting shapes that looks really good in photography, in the frame, that looks really good in the shot, and it helps you to create really good cinematic images. For my photography, the inspiration of composition I take in the cinema, in the movies, because I have this obsession. I guess like 90% of content creators, or at least like 90% of cinematic content creators. I'm also have really big passion for cinematic shots, and even my name, of this channel is Andrew Cinema. So that kind of suppose that I have to look for cinematic shots. And basically in cinematic shots, and the same goes in photography, what I see, everything that you have in your shot, everything that you have in your frame has to have an impact of the story. I started doing photography, I tried, to take as many details, as many objects as possible in my shots. But the human eye in general doesn't work like that. When we see something, usually our eye focuses on some certain details and certain things, and usually on one or couple close to each other things, and usually we don't see the whole picture. And that's why, this is the idea of, let's say, blurred background is really important, because when we see something, even though we see the whole picture, but usually we have the focus on certain objects, and that's why everything else looks kind of like blurred. So when you're doing the photography, the main idea, at least for me, this is how I see, this is what I'm still learning, and I think I learned a bit, but I'm still learning. I'm trying to focus on the main objects that usually are the key storytellers, like for example, if you talk about architecture, if you talk about pictures connected to buildings, pictures connected to city objects, because like street photography, then even the name of street photography says that you go on the street and you take everything what you see in the street, So if talking about architecture, you usually have to work to be able to see the story in the buildings, to see the story that buildings create. Usually it might be, some arc, or just, some dark alley with the light at the end, Or it might be just, for example, some old building that looks like really old, might be an old photography, because I really have this passion for vintage and retro style, and I think it's like really popular. And many people, many photographers try to make photographies look as old as possible. Sometimes the photography of architecture, or having some interesting architecture objects in photography, they are only as additional storytellers. Like, for example, if you focus on people, if you focus on the objects that are tied to that building, the building works as a background. Like, for example, if you sometimes do photography, I live in Nordics, so for example, what you can find on any street is bicycles. And making photos of bicycles, usually, like, if you just take the photo of bicycle alone, it might be poor composition, because bicycle, it's not an interesting object unless it's some interesting bicycle. But if the bicycle is next to the building, or several bicycles are like, in the one shot, or they are like just next to each other, or you see people riding the bicycle in the street, that also tells the story. Or the next kind of street photography is taking pictures of people, taking photos of people. There are several skills that you have, or you are developing while doing those photos. One skill is composition. You have to be able to see not only interesting people, but also interesting stories among people. Pretty often we are talking about the relationship, about how people interact with each other, or how people don't want to interact with each other, or like you take photos of some events that also create a story, but that's also about interaction with other people, how people that you see, how they make other people react, how they make you as a photographer react, how they make you as a person react to them. And second, really important thing for all content creators is being able to take photography of people in public places with really short lenses. When you take, there's a rule in street photography: if your shot don't look good, that means you were too far from the subject. And this builds the best skill ever: the ability to take a photo in front of the people, not being bothered what other people think of you, or how they will interact, or how they will react seeing you with the camera. And for every content creator, that's one of the most important skills, because you have to be able to film, to create content in front of the other people. Because let's be honest, most of the videos that I do now I make without any other people interacting with them. Why? Because it's easy. And that's why those videos are not that interesting. If I would make the same videos just talking while having, a bunch of the people walking around, if some crowded places, those videos would be 10 times more interesting. This would make my videos more alive than they look now. So I know that. And even though I work on that skill, that doesn't mean that this skill is perfect enough. And of course, one more thing that it's not a street photography, but one thing I believe as a photographer or as a content creator I do, and I think it is pretty good for content creators to do, is taking photos of people. I mean, do photo shoots, so my main model, I have two main models for, for photo shoots. So my main model is my wife. And pretty often when we go for a walk, I do some photographies of her, or just sometimes we just approach the photo shoot, we decide what kind of photo shoot we want to do, or what we gonna, sometimes we just talk, or I have some ideas. I ask her, would you like to be involved in photo shoot like that? Yes, she says, because I think I would like to try this shot, that would look really interesting. And yeah, if she agrees, we just go do, and 90% of the time she agrees on all the shots. And for me, it's really easy to make photo shoots of her because I know her really good, and like I know how she moves. I know how she reacts to different situations. I know how she gonna look in different light situation. I know how she gonna look with different clothes. How she gonna look in different backgrounds. So it's so easy. Sometimes I think it's not challenging enough, but if I'm focusing just on composition, that's the perfect model for me because I know her really good. My second model that I do photos pretty often of is me, myself. And if being honest, I never was a big fan of selfies, and I thought that's bullshit, and I thought that's some, that's some sort of photography that's made for teenage girls, but I need to work for taking photos of people. And sometimes I'm someone who is always available. I can easily practice different lighting, different angles. I just put the camera on timer. If I see, like, even being sometimes at home, I see, like, I live in this wonderful place when I have, like, so good lighting and so good background, so good view. And just sometimes, in random places, being at home, I just think, damn, this light looks perfect. I wonder what would look the photography in this light, or I just come with some idea how I would do that on me. And not because I love myself that much, or I believe that I'm such a beauty and such a nice and good looking guy, but because I'm the one who is always with me. I'm the one who I can take photo every time. I think those are three types of photography. Yeah, I mentioned street photography, but let's be okay. The photography in general that, in my vision, content creators should be doing. At least I do. At least I should be doing, and that's why I do, because I have to work on certain skills, and those certain skills for me are important. So I think I completed my task. I wanted to do 5-7 minutes video, but I see that this video gonna be way longer. But I completed my task for today. I really hope that might be interesting and important for you if you have some ideas about how you approach the photography, what kind of shots you build, why you build those shots, why you think that is this might be more important. Please share in the comments, write me. I'm really interested to understand how you approach and see the photography. So I completed my task for today. Thanks to everyone that's watching my videos. Thanks to everyone that watched my videos before, that are watching my video now. And have a good evening, and see you tomorrow.